Hello you guys, Ben here, otherwise known as Vertigo. I hope you're all doing well. Um, so we're going to be flying today from Las Vegas McCarran, KLAS, to Ontario in California, KONT. This is a very short, fun little flight. It's about 45 minutes long, and the view on the approach into Ontario when you come over the mountains is just gorgeous. And this is one I've been really wanting to do. So we're going to go ahead and fly this one today. Now, as far as the format of the video goes, I listened to what you guys had to say. And we're going to try something a little different yet again. I'm going to show more of the flying, more of the preparation of the flight deck. However, I'm going to break this up into two videos. So one will be kind of the departure, the pre-flight and the departure, and the second will be the descent, prep, and the landing. So hopefully get the best of both worlds, where those of you who want more content get it, and those of you who want kind of a smaller, more digestible video will get it in the form of two videos. Also, when I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm going to attempt to, instead of just doing it and saying what I'm doing, I'm going to attempt to explain why I'm doing it within reason. I don't want to get too technical, but there was a comment that somebody mentioned. They wanted to see these videos be a little more informational, a little more instructional, and understandably so I will attempt to incorporate that in. At any rate, we're on the ground here at Gate Bravo 10 at Las Vegas. Flying as Southwest in the old colors here, the classic livery. We're going up to flight level 260. We are flying on VATSIM, and we currently have control, so hopefully they'll stick around for us, and hopefully this jetway doesn't disappear as I pan around. I have a hunch that it will. Early in the morning here, about 7 in the morning on the West Coast, and so at least in the sim. Now, here on the East Coast when I'm flying, it's late at night, but time in sim is early morning, as that is when this flight departs. The call sign is Southwest 1086. Active Sky 16, I'm back to using Rex soft clouds. No longer using Active Sky Cloud Art. This airport's by FS Dream Team, and then I have a freeware scenery for Ontario that I got made by Shez and Sari. It's nice. This will be my first time using it. So at any rate, we can go ahead and hop into the flight deck here in just a moment and get this flight started. Alright guys, welcome into the flight deck. Those of you who are familiar with the PMDG 737 NGX, this will all look very familiar to you. The aircraft is completely cold and dark, so let's walk ourselves through the process of getting it from this state to powered and ready to go. So we'll get the battery on so the aircraft has electrical power, and we can arm the emergency exit lights for some reason, should we need them. I don't think we will. With that done, I then come down here to the FMS and use FS actions to get some ground connections going in the form of ground power and air conditioning, so we have sustainable electrical power. Ground power is connected. Logo light can come on at this point. I generally run with the logo light on at all times. We can align the IRSs and begin that process. So 2 clicks to IRS and they will start aligning like so. With that done, I put our fuel and payload on board, and I just call the boarding done. So our release fuel, which I have from PFPX, is 12,019 pounds, so 12,019. Put that on board, and then our zero fuel weight is our payload. And I enter our zero fuel weight here is at 93.1, so it's quite low. And insert that like so. And we now call ourselves boarded, fuel and payload on board. We can close the front left entry door. I believe our cargo doors are already closed, which they are, so our doors are closed, and I will now pull away the jetway. And we're done with our FS actions for the time being. Get the right hand FMS here on the legs page and the left hand FMS on ident, and we'll step through this momentarily. Now that we're boarded, or hypothetically boarded, we'll get the passenger signs on. Window heat can come on as well. Packs are fine off because we have air conditioning running. Isolation valve can stay open. Bleeds can all stay on, and we can set the pressurization panel. We're going up to flight level 260, and the landing altitude at Ontario is surveyed elevation is 944, so we'll call it 950 if we round that like so. Down the radio panel, we do have control here. Las Vegas approach is online, so we will give him a call and get clearance from him. ATIS information is Quebec, and approach is 135.0, so let's call him. Las Vegas approach, good evening. It's Southwest 1086 with information Quebec, IFR to Ontario.
Southwest 1086, Las Vegas departure, good evening, clear to Ontario, Boat 6 departure, Hector transition that has filed. 5 via saved, departure frequency 135.0, squawk 1314.
Squawk 1314, Southwest 1086.
Southwest 1086, should be back correct, expect runway 25 right for departure, information, Quebec is correct.
Roger. Okay, so I actually know the guy who's on frequency. That's cool. We got our squawk code, our routing. The reason I just read back the squawk and not the whole routing is because it's confirmed in here in ZLA, Los Angeles RTAC. You can go ahead and do that. So let's get off frequency so that I'm not getting stepped on by other pilots while I'm trying to talk to you guys. And we'll get into the FMS. So, reference airport is Las Vegas, and that clearance again, he gave us our departure, our transition, our altitude, which is climbed via the SID, the departure frequency, and then a squawk code. And so some people want you to read that all back. Los Angeles doesn't want you to unless, and by Los Angeles I mean Los Angeles RTAC, not Los Angeles Airport. They don't care if you read that all back unless there's an amendment to your routing, which in our case there wasn't. So if we go to the next page, this is our GPS position. We can use this to align the IRS. We'll now see the ND and the PFD populate with information, and essentially the IRS is telling us where we need to be, or not where we need to be, but where we are. It gives the aircraft a sense of relativity, if you will. Yeah, it allows the navigation systems to work as they should. So our origin is Las Vegas KLAS, and the identifier for Ontario is KONT. Runway for departure is 25 right. The winds are out of the west, and this gives us a lot of length now. The reason you need long runways for takeoff, I mean, in general, the heavier you are and whatnot. And now we aren't that heavy, right? However, the density altitude here is such that you need more runway. The air is quite thin. So the engine's thrust produces less energy, essentially. There's less air for those engines to thrust against. It's pushing less air out. So you need, I didn't do a great job of explaining that, but you need more runway. You have worse performance, essentially. The engines don't perform as well. And our flight number is Southwest 1086. Okay, so our routing, we end up Boat 6 to Hector, and that's our one intermediate fix is the Hector VOR. And then if we come to departures, you'll see the Boat 6 right there, Hector transition, select that, and 25 right is already selected. And then for arrivals, we're going to have the Ziggy 5. We're going to be landing to the west because I took a look at the weather and the winds are out of the west. So Ziggy 5, Hector transition as well. Departure and the arrival both share a transition. And the runway, I'm assuming, is going to be 26 left, although that might be closed. I'm not entirely sure if 25 left is still open at Ontario. I can take a look here at the NOTAMs and see if there's anything. This is quite an old NOTAM. It's expired long ago. We will tentatively say 25 left. It could be 25 right, though. So we'll see what control has in mind. Sorry, not 25, 26. I'm thinking about Los Angeles. So 26 left. My bad. And this might change to 26 right, not 25 right. So there is our routing. We will activate that and execute it. And just take a look at the legs page and make sure everything looks fine. Rebel to Roper, or Roper to Rod to Boach to Hector to Donna. And then we do have some altitude restrictions here that we can insert now. So from Hector, we're tracking to Donna, where we can expect 12,000 feet at Donna. From Donna, we're tracking to Aaron, to Gary, to Ziggy, to Pettis, to Fonta, and then we join the localizer at that point, or the ILS after, or at Pettis, I believe we join the ILS. So there is our routing, good to go, and obviously that's all kind of in limbo with ATC. We're on their whims, or we act according to their whims. I shouldn't say whims, we act according to their advice and requests. Our reserve fuel is, and this is our reserve fuel, if we go below this we'll get messages, it's 4.7. Our zero fuel weight, as you can see, just auto-filled. We use a cost index of 44. I talked to a Southwest Airlines pilot and he told me that it's 44 or around about there. Flight level, as I mentioned earlier, is 260. It's a relatively short flight and we're westbound, so we're at an even altitude. We don't need to worry about cruise winds. I could try and pull that from PFPX. There's no real sense in doing that. And the outside air temperature at top of climb is minus 23, so we will insert that like so. Takeoff D-rate, we do have a D-rate via TopCat, and this is essentially you're scaling back the performance of the engines on takeoff to save wear and tear over time. It's a simulator, so you don't really need to worry about that, but for the sake of realism, we're going to go ahead and do it. So we have 24K, we don't have a D-rate, but we do have an assumed OAT, which is climb performance reduction, so 61 on the OAT, and this is with a flap setting of flaps 1. Our center of gravity autofills, and that'll be our trim for takeoff, 4.18 units, and V-speeds will autofill as well. V1 we're committed at 116, optimal rotational speed 118, and V2 is 122. So, let's set the parking brake. Let's open the number 1 forward fuel pump here so we can get some fuel flowing, and we'll use that to start the APU. We can set the MCP, so here on indicated airspeed we set V2, which is 122. On heading, we set the initial heading on departure, which is 255 off runway 25 right. Top of climb is 190 on the SID, which I'm getting from the chart, so we'll set that here in the altitude bug on the MCP. We can get our flight directors on, we can get traffic on the ND, terrain on the ND, and data on the ND over here. And on the left-hand side, we'll just get data and traffic. And we can RVNAV and LNAV here on the ground because we do have an RNAV departure, so it saves us a little bit of work while we're up in the air. Last thing we should do is set the altimeter information. Quebec is current, and the altimeter currently is 2990, and that is set. So we'll hang out, wait for that APU rather to come up, and once that's come up, then we will get ready for push and start. In fact, I will call over GSX right now to push us back. We're going to have our nose to the left and tail to the right. Okay, APU is available, transfer power to the APU gens. Can turn the yaw damper on. We'll come back down into the FMC and go to FS actions and clear all our ground connections at this point. We can open the remainder of our fuel pumps and turn on the anti-collision light.
This is ground crew, stand by for pushback.
And we're ready to go at this point. So we'll hang out, we'll let the ground crew do their thing, connect the gear, push us back, we'll start our engines, and then we'll taxi on out. A little funny shadow bug there. Those clouds look nice though, and those mountains look gorgeous out there.
Ground crew departure check is complete. Nose gear steering disconnected for push. Release parking brakes.
Okay, brakes released.
Okay, here we go. All clear behind the aircraft. Safe to start engines at your discretion.
All engines clear. Start that wheel.
And we'll start engine number 2. I know the general procedure is number 2 then number 1, and I'm not sure if that has to do with hydraulic pressurization or not, but we'll go ahead and do it by the book here. So you're looking for about 2.5% N1 or 25% N2, and once you have those indications, then is an ideal time to feed fuel in. So we have 25% N2, and we'll feed fuel in by releasing the cutoff switch and pushing it up there to idle, which allows fuel into the engine, and it should ignite. You can hear it coming up there very nicely. If we peek out here, we may be able to see it, in fact. See the wingtip, not so much the engine though. Then we'll hear a starter cutout here in a moment. Once you have a starter cutout, you're good to go with the other engine. You can go ahead and start engine number 1 at that point. There goes the starter cutout. The start valve should close, which it does, and we'll go ahead and start engine number 1.
Set parking brakes, please.
Brakes are set. Pushback is complete. With that done, we can set the auto brake to RTO. And again, exact same procedure. You're looking for 2.5% N1 or 25% N2, and then fuel can go in. So there is 25% N2 and 2.5% N1. They generally occur roughly simultaneously, and we'll feed fuel into engine number 1.
Unlocking gear.
See exhaust gas temperature there rising, EGT. N1
Nose
coming
wheel
up
steering
nicely.
connected. Pins removed. Tow vehicle disconnected.
Fuel flow will spike and then slowly come down. Oil pressure should slowly rise. Oil temperature should slowly rise. Oil quantity is good in both engines. There goes the starter cutout. We have a good start on engine number 1, so we'll transfer power to the engine gens, call that engine gens on the bus, and APU is now off the bus. We can turn the APU off APU bleed can go off because we have
Clear
all that.
behind the aircraft, left and right.
Standby. Okay, he's shut up. All that hot air blowing out through the engine gens, so we can get rid of the APU bleed. Get the passenger air conditioning, the packs back on, isolation valve to auto, electric hydraulics on, probe heat on, set our start switches to continuous. Auto throttle is armed, auto brake is already RTO. Set our flaps for takeoff to flaps 1. We'll set our trim for takeoff, which is 4.18 units, so come down here to the stabilizer trim, and we'll wind this back just a bit, 4.18, and right about in there, we'll call it. So our trim is set, and at this point, all we really need to do is check our flight controls, and then we're ready for taxi. So, we'll just make sure the flight controls are free and clear. We'll go full up on the elevator, full down, check the ailerons here. Everything seems to be moving well, and check the rudder, which appears to be totally fine as well. So, we'll get the taxi light on. We'll set the transponder to auto, which you need to do in the US. If you were in Europe, I don't think you need to do this, although maybe things have changed. And we'll release the parking brakes and call the controller here for taxi, and we have information Quebec still. So, get my little notepad so I can write down our taxi instructions. Oh, has he gone offline? I can't get through. Perhaps he signed off. Perhaps not. But the frequency... Oh, you know why? Because I'm not even on frequency. Wow. Professional pilot right here. Oh, jeez. Okay, now we'll call him. Southwest 1086 with Quebec ready for taxi.
Southwest 1086, runway 25 right, taxi via Charlie, correction, Bravo 5, Bravo.
25 right by Bravo 5 Bravo, Southwest 1086. Okay, so there are our taxi instructions, and off to the runway we go. Alright guys, so steer approaching threshold at 25 right. We'll get the weather radar on, so if there's any precipitation, they won't be, we're in the desert. But if there is, we'll see it there, and we'll let ATC know that we are about ready to go. And Southwest 1086 is short at 25 right, fully ready.
Southwest 1086, starting at the Rebel, wind 2306, runway 25 right, clear for takeoff.
RNAV Rebel, 25 right, clear for takeoff, Southwest 1086. Okay, so transponder to TARA as we enter the runway so that we have traffic here on our displays, should there be traffic in the area. We'll get our strobe on. Anytime you enter an active runway, you need to do that, and we'll get the landing lights on for takeoff. And if we click just down here, we can start the clock to keep track of the flight time. It's pretty optional, but it's nice to have that reference. So, go ahead and line it up. Try and hold the center line, and advance the throttles to about 40%. Let them stabilize there, and then engage takeoff power via toga by clicking here like so. Follow that up with our throttles, and takeoff. N1 and toga are enunciated there in the PFD. Airspeed is alive. There is 80 knots, and we should see thrust hold enunciate, which it does.
V1.
There's V1.
Rotate. V2.
Gently ease back on the yoke, pull that nose up. Okay, so we have a positive rate of climb, and we'll raise the gear at this point around 50 to 100 feet on the radio altimeter. Hold that nose up. LNAV is now engaged, and there's N1 and VNAV speed.
6 radar contact, climb and maintain flight level 190.
Climb and maintain flight level 190, Southwest 1086. So given that we got to climb and maintain, we can clear any altitude restrictions and go straight up to 190, and because we're so light, you can see this rate of climb is just off the charts. There's our acceleration height. We'll allow the plane to nose over, still just following the flight directors, and we'll drop the gear off. Auto brake can go off, and we need to bring in the flaps and get the engine start switches as well. So we'll allow the speed to rise. Passing through flaps 1 speed, we can bring the flaps up and accelerate the flaps up speed. So, there we go. Passing the flaps 1 bug, flaps coming up now.
1086, proceed direct approach, resume the approach 6 departure.
Direct boats, resume the boat 6 departure, Southwest 1086. So, let's put in the autopilot. now that our flaps are retracted, we can go ahead and get the start switches off, and we'll clean up some of these lights. And we're given direct to Boach by ATC, so we find the Boach fixin here, the Boach intersection. We'll insert that and execute it, and the plane will now make a left-hand turn direct to Boach. And we can enjoy this view a little bit. Anyway, the aircraft is cleaned up, and we're on our way to Ontario. I'll see you guys as we're getting ready to plan for the descent.